Hello again. We're back again, and I was thinking of another bog man I knew in Tor Bog. It was about 1972, and I used to love crossing. I used to come down through the Tor house. I used to get over at the end of the boring where I lived, and I'd get into the Tor house, the old Tor house estate fields, and I'd cross the fields down into Tor Bog, and across Tor Bog, and I used to come out to the Silver River, and that was the border between Westmeath and Offaly. Well, of course, I was in the Offaly side, or the Westmeath side, and it's a Haraka night lines, and I'd go all up the river, and I used to love it because it was a very magical place, and a lot of people used to live there, and they left an awful lot of lovely folklore stories, and I was sort of gathering them up as well as seeing all the magic. But any time I get the smell of mushrooms frying, I'd know Jack would have the pan of mushrooms. Jack used to pick the fresh mushrooms out of the field, and I'd bring down 3 or 4 trout, and the feed would go on the pan. And Jack he was a great character. He lived in the bog on his own. He was an elderly man, and I would have been related to him through marriage because his aunt was married to my great grandfather. And Lord, he could tell some stories, Jack. But he'd have me sit at the fire, and I wouldn't eat the trout because he wouldn't skin them, gut them, wash them, nothing. Just straight into the pan and with the mushrooms, and he'd fry them with butter. And he'd eat head, tail, the whole lot, like bones, everything. But I'd have a few fried mushrooms while I'd be there with him. And if there was a breeze, a wind out, I'd have you listening to the wind going up the chimney. But I remember one story he told me. I said to him, Jack, I said, do you never get lonely living out here all your life on your own? You never get lonely for a woman? Surely you must have thought of a woman at some stage. And he looked at me, nah, the devil a woman. What would I want with a woman out here? He said, your woman only rises dust. He said, and the dust is best left alone. He said, I can darn my own socks, and I can fry my own mushrooms and fish and whatever I want. I said, did you ever venture off anywhere? Oh, my God, I did, he said. Oh, he said, I would have only been a few years older than you, he says, and I decided that was it, I was heading off. He said, and I packed my old bag and thrown it across my back, he said. And the first day, he said, I headed out, he said, and he got a few miles down the road as far as Mullaghrush. He said, because every 10 minutes I'd bump into somebody. Where are you heading, Jack? I'm heading off, going to make me fortune and everything. He said, come nightfall, he said, I got to Mullaghrush, he said, and an old couple accepted me in, said to give me a bed for the night, he said, and God, he said they were washing flax or something, I think he said, and she gave me a big slab of wheaten cake, he said, a mug of tea, and a whole load of butter on this hot wheaten cake. He said, but I was sitting at the fire, he said, and I was eating this, and the next thing he said, God, didn't the melted butter fall into the fire? And the flames went up, caught the flax. The flax caught the thatch and burnt the roof down, and they run me out and said, you brought us bad luck, the devil was with you. Get out of here, go on beyond your way. Oh, that was fair enough, he said. I kept going. He said it was getting late into the night. He said about 1 o'clock in the morning I got to as far as Clunneslee. He said I was still in Offaly. And because he said a widow woman took me in, and she had a couple of young children, and her husband had died young, he said, and by God, the next thing, he said, I got to sleep in a straw bed in the corner beside the fire, and I had a woeful dream, he said. No, and I woke up, he said, about 5 o'clock in the morning. And she was up and she was making tea, and I told her about this dream. That I'd gone out the back, and he said that I dug into, there was a fairy fort in her back field. He said, and I dug into the fairy fort and didn't I find a crock. He said, and it was full of gold. And by God, he said, I have to go out and check it. He said, I went out and checked it anyway and dug it. Because he said, I only went down a few spits and I found the crock. He said, but I was still too tired, he said, to dig it out or anything, so I went back in, he said, and she made me a big mug of broth. She said, now, Jack, you lie down there and rest yourself. She said, there's no rush when you have a good sleep, and when you're refreshed, you get up and dig up the crock. So because he said I fell into a deep sleep and I didn't wake up, he said, till 12 o'clock the next day, he said, and there she was, he said, sweeping up the kitchen and everything, and I said to her, hello, missus, he said, because I feel refreshed now, he says, I'll go out there and dig up that crock. What crock are you talking about, you see? The crock I told you about, the one I saw in my vision, and I went out and I started to dig it and I come across it. And you told me to, no, she says, I don't remember nothing. She says, you're raving, Jack Donohoe. She says, you're not right in the head, you never said nothing to me about a crock. Because he said I went out and no sign of that the hole was there, he said, but there was no sign of the crock. So that was as far as I got, he said. I threw my bag in my bag, he said, and I went back to Torbog, and I've been here ever since. He said, and I never wanted to see past the horizon after that. He said, and do you know something, he said, for years and years that woman's children, he said, had the best of clothes, the best of grubs, they went to the best school, they went on holiday, they had everything, they bought farms and land, he says. Isn't that shocking, he said. And that's why I'm here. What do you think of that for a story? That's true.